Was the subject of a bit of back and forth between the defense and the judge. They didn't want her necessarily to give that information to this jury, but that's the approach she took. She even checked in with Nicholas Cruz saying, is it okay if I give this admonition to this jury and let them know who you are as we get into this voir dire process? Want to get your thoughts on how she handled that.
Well, first of all, the kid is represented by counsel, and to ask him as if he were a pro per defendant whether or not it's okay, I think is inappropriate. In my opinion, this is a classic example of why this trial should have been held after the murder trial. She just tainted an entire veneer panel. She just told an entire panel of prospective jurors not to judge this young man for having murdered 17 people. Instead, you're only here to consider whether or not he committed an assault. It's like, thanks a lot, lady. You just completely compromised my client's ability to get a fair trial. There was no good reason for doing that.
Yeah, fair enough. She says at the end, she says, if you hadn't heard of them, I don't want you to now go and do research. But I thought to myself, I said, well, you just told them all about it. What do they need to do research for? So I was a little concerned about that approach. Now, in light of that, my question is, did it perhaps make it a little easier? Because I can tell you, they brought in panels of 32. Of that first panel, 18 raised their hand and said they couldn't be impartial, were excused. Another 14 on a second panel of 32. So you got rid of the folks who had issues with it, and now you're just dealing with the folks who don't. Could it, in the long run, have made it easier on these attorneys? Because now the folks who are sitting in there at least think that they can be impartial. Now it's, of course, the job of the attorneys to figure out if they actually can.
No, and the short answer is it depends. She didn't ask each juror individually whether or not they could set it aside. She just, basically said, by show of hands, anybody here can be fair. And of course, you have 18 who raised their hands. God only knows how many people were left in the silent majority who just sat there idle, saying nothing, remiss in raising their hand and just sitting there stewing over whether or not they have to sit in judgment of a serial killer. That's the impression. It's terrible. And I have other issues, too, regarding the replacement of his counsel.
Yeah, that's another big issue in this case. So at the end of the day, let me ask you, do you think, considering all we're talking about, that they can actually get a fair and impartial jury in this case? Again, there's only 6 jurors in this particular case, not even 12. So want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, a lot of it's going to hinge on how thorough the attorneys are during the voir dire examination. You're going to have to drill these jurors and hopefully the judge will give these lawyers extra time to figure out who these jurors are, what their predispositions are, what their bents on life are, and certainly what, if anything, they've read. I would even maybe put a law clerk out in the halls while they're waiting to come into the courtroom just to monitor them, see what, if anything, they're reading. If you see a prospective juror out there reading Mein Kampf, get rid of them, or if you see, right? Or if you see them reading, Helter Skelter, something like that, you need to get rid of them. So they need to really take care and be extra cautious right now, because I truly believe the judge compromised that entire panel.
Wow, interesting take. All right, Philip Dube, always appreciate your insights. Right now, stand by. We're going to take a quick break, still to come on CourtTV Live. CourtTV legal correspondent Chanley Painter joins us in just a minute to discuss the latest coming out of the Doomsday Couple case. She's on that. Plus, we take a look at the upcoming trial of the men responsible for the killing of Ahmaud Arbery and some information that the defense would like the jury to know about Arbery. We'll tell you about that. And the Ahmaud Arbery case is also the focus of our daily Talkback segment, where we ask you if the jury should know that Arbery was on probation at the time of his shooting. Go to CourtTV social media pages, leave a comment. We'll discuss it later in the hour. That's all coming up here on CourtTV.